Yo, what's up guys, and I'm going to react to this horror short, so I'm gonna start.
Over the years, we've seen incidents and cases that logic and science can't explain. It was nothing new to us, stuff Lorraine and I were used to, but nothing could have prepared us for the house on Chase Street. When we first got to the Smurl family's home in West Pittsons, Pennsylvania, the summer sun felt heavy, but the house looked dark, like it swallowed the light. The porch steps groaned like bones breaking. The paint was peeling, and the windows were covered in a greasy film. Even the grass around the house was dead, like the ground itself was poisoned. Lorraine grabbed my arm so tight it hurt. Her face turned white.
Ed,
She whispered.
it's everywhere here.
The smell hit me next. Rotten meat and burnt hair, but weirdly sweet, like old candy. Inside, the walls seemed to move, like they were breathing. Jack and Janet Smurl stood in the hallway, their eyes hollow, hands shaking. Their 4 girls hid behind them, too scared to speak. Upstairs, Jack's parents barely left their room.
It gets worse when it's dark.
Janet said, her voice
Okay, I gotta say something. Why would you tell someone that it gets worse when it's dark, right after they get to the house? Okay, I'm just gonna stop.
cracking.
It touches us.
Jack rolled up his sleeve to show bruises shaped like long fingers. It grabbed my ankle and dragged me off the bed, he said.
Left these marks.
Janet lifted her shirt. 4 deep cuts ran down her back, the skin black and wet.
They won't heal. They just leak.
The kids' stories were worse. The youngest, Heather, woke up screaming about a man with no face who pinched their toes. Twins Mary and Laura drew pictures of a shadow that licked the windows, leaving greasy streaks. The oldest, Susan, said her closet door would creak open at night, and she'd hear something scratching the floor, getting closer to her bed. That night, we set up cameras and tape recorders. Lorraine sat on the floor, holding her cross, her eyes closed like she was listening for something. Midnight came. The house got too quiet. Then, a growl. Not a dog, not a person. Something deeper, meaner. The room turned freezing cold. Our breath turned to fog. The growl became a crash, walls shaking, doors slamming. Something heavy ran down the hall towards us. Thud, thud, thud. Each step makes the floorboards crack. Above us, the ceiling creaked like something was crawling up there, claws scratching the plaster. Then, a scream. Jack's mom. We ran upstairs. Her door shook like something was trying to break out. When it flew open, the room stank like rotting meat. The old woman pointed to the corner, shaking. There, in the dark, a shape formed from the shadows, tall, black as oil, with glowing yellow eyes. The air around it twisted, like heat off a fire. Lorraine jumped in front of me as it lunged. Then it broke apart into flies that dropped dead on the floor. The next few days were hell. Jack got thrown into a dresser by nothing, his ribs cracking. Janet's hair got yanked so hard her neck snapped back, and she felt hot breath on her ear growled.
Mine.
The kids' toys moved by themselves. Dolls with melted faces crawled up the stairs, and a rocking horse smashed itself to pieces. One night, the kitchen faucet turned on by itself, spewing black water that smelled like sewage. The thing got stronger. Lorraine saw it crawl on the ceiling like a spider, legs bending wrong. Black mold spread on the walls, making evil markings, upside-down crosses, symbols like goat heads. Mirrors exploded, glass shards making patterns that hurt to look at. The walls leaked black slime that burned skin and made the kids puke. One night, Lorraine told me what she felt during her trance.
It's not just one ghost, Ed. It's hundreds, trapped here, turning into something
That's even worse.
hungry.
She shook, describing a pit full of screaming people, all stuck together, rotting. We called Father Dylan, an old priest who'd done exorcisms before. He walked in and froze. "This place stinks of hell," he said. We started the exorcism at noon. The priest shouted prayers, but the house fought back. Floorboards shot nails up like spikes. The Bible caught fire. A chandelier fell, almost hitting him. He kept going, splashing holy water that hissed on the walls. Then, silence. For a second, we thought we won. The laughs started low, like a sick joke. The walls bulged, shapes pressing against them, hands, faces, all trying to break through. Father Dylan's nose bled. "It's not leaving!" he yelled. Then, a cut opened on his cheek like a knife slashed him. That night, the thing went wild. Jack woke up, unable to move, something crushing his chest. Janet floated off her bed, her back bending until it snapped before she dropped to the floor. In the girls' room, Heather's teddy bear exploded, spitting out maggots that crawled into their ears. The whole time, a voice boomed, a mix of screams and growls.
Flesh to break, bones to drink.
We ran at sunrise, the Smurls piling into our car with nothing but their clothes, but the darkness followed. In their new apartment, sinks spat black goo. Family photos burst into flames. Heather's reflection in the mirror moved on its own, mouthing words that made her stop talking for weeks. One night, Jack's dad woke up to find his pillow soaked in blood, though he had no wounds. The TV would turn on by itself, showing static with glowing eyes in the center. It took 3 years of prayers, charms, and sleepless nights for the hauntings to fade. The Smurls moved again and changed their phone numbers, but they still jumped at every noise. The house on Chase Street is still there. New owners painted it yellow, but no one lived there long. Neighbors hear things, kids laughing, then screaming. A low growl in the dark saying, "More!" Tormented by a demonic entity. The activity included foul odors and dark shadows creeping along the walls, loud banging and growling sounds at night, family members being levitated and scratched, a dark shadowy figure dragging one family member across the bed. The Smurls sought help from Ed and Lorraine Warren, who confirmed demonic activity. Exorcisms were performed, but the family eventually moved to escape the horror. I never thought ghosts existed, or curses, or any of the spooky tales told at bedtime to keep children out of abandoned houses. But all that changed when I became an employee at the Kansas when I tried to steal any of the artifacts and don't fall asleep. But there was one exhibit that creeped me out even in the daylight. The Bender family exhibit. It was the old senior guard, Hank, who had told me the tale. He was a gruff old fellow, a lifer in the museum trade, and he had that kind of voice that made each tale sound 1,000 times more terrible than it was. "You ever hear of the Bloody Benders?" he asked one evening, leaning on his flashlight. I nodded my head. "Well, back in the 1870s, a family, father, mother, son, daughter, ran an inn out in the middle of nowhere. Travelers would stop by for a meal, maybe a night's rest, but they never left. The Benders had a trick, a curtain in their cabin that separated the dining area from the back. When they had a guest sit with his back to it, one of the men would strike his skull with a hammer, and the women would cut his throat. They never left. The Benders had a trick, a curtain in their cabin that separated the dining area from the back. When they
Bro, the eye is still open. Oh my god.
Had a guest sit with his back to it, one of the men would strike his skull with a hammer, and the women would cut his throat. They'd then toss the body in a pit in the back. No one had any idea how many